Hey y'all, welcome to another episode brought to you by Cool-Kegs Productions of M.A.G.G-Military Aircraft, Guns, and Gaming. It's your boy Kegs. I decided to do one today because, why not? I got nothing better to do with my time. Well, objectively, you could probably say I do, but I know y'all enjoy these, so why not? Today, I decided to cover one that my old man told me about from when he was in the Air Force that he got to watch take off. Don't bother counting the rings in the afterburner on this plane, ladies and gentlemen, because guess what? You're going to just quit before you get there. Today, we're covering the SR71 Blackbird. Obviously, as most people know, this was a CIA black project by Skunkworks. And we're gonna do a bit of an information dump on you today. So, but while we get into it, do us a favor, hit that like button, subscribe, and bash that noti bell, or as we like to affectionately call it, because we made a little icon on it, we call it punching the toast. So, actually, slap that toast to find out if it's butter side up or butter side down. All right, now we're gonna get into the info. It's going to be a bit, so bear with me here because it took me a while to compile all of this together. So the SR71 can go from coast to coast in 1 hour. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, sea to shining sea in 1 hour flat. It was retired from service in 1990. Upon this retirement, a trifecta of these aircraft were given to NASA. Trifecta is 3, by the way. 3 of them were given to NASA for high altitude and high speed research for their re-entries and whatnot. 32 total of this aircraft were put into production. 12 were lost in testing and accidents. They consist a crew of 2, 1 pilot and 1 reconnaissance systems officer who manages the astro-inertial navigation, various radios, and the electronic defense systems, which is said can guard against the FAA. It's about the size of a DC-9 with a gross weight of 152,000 pounds, and over half of that is fuel. The nose boom contains the pitot tube and static pressure sources, along with a probe for the direction of airflow, giving side slip and an angle of attack. The blended forward wing is called a chine, which gives it its signature Cobra-like appearance. Running from the nose to the leading edge of the wing, it constitutes about 40% of the aircraft. The chine acts like a fixed canard and contributes heavily to the Blackbird's lift and stability at high speeds. Speaking of high speeds, she is powered by a pair of Pratt & Whitney JT11D-20 engines, known in aviation circles as J58s, which objectively is easier to say, wouldn't you say? I mean, come on now. Those engines are operated at afterburner. Each engine produces 32,500 pounds of thrust at sea level, which, as we know, the SR-71 does not operate at sea level. Inlet spikes on the engines, which are noticeably sharp, slow the air as it enters the engine at supersonic speeds by moving the spike rearwards to achieve slower air, thus negating the possibility of engine failure due to ingestion of supersonic shockwave, which causes a flameout. And as you can imagine, I'm sure this would snag the attention of anyone inside the cockpit at Mach 3. Blackbird has a pair of biconvex delta wings with a leading edge sweep of 53 degrees, which also serve as fuel tanks. This is known as wet wings, very wet wings. Parked Blackbirds regularly had pools of fuel under them due to the seams in the wings, which allow leakage. Under immense friction and compression, the heat generated across the airframe would cause it to expand by almost 6 inches, which seals the seams. So when you take off, you're just leaving puddles, man. Which is kind of unnerving if you think about it. Then you got 8 miles of afterburner out the rear end of the plane. Obviously, I'm exaggerating, but and you're just leaking fuel. Sounds like a good way to blow up to me, but some people would disagree. During sustained Mach 3 flight, the skin of this aircraft would vary between 400 and 1200 degrees Fahrenheit, and as you may guess, this takes care of any structural icing. So hot, in fact, that bird poop would never need to be cleaned from the airplane. These temps were so hot, it would act like a self-cleaning oven, burning the stuff right off during flight. Notably also burning all the decals off as well. The structure being built of titanium alloy, as aluminum gets far too weak at these temperatures. High emissivity paint is used, the black plate radiating 3 times as much heat as a bare metal. The main landing gear tires are infused with aluminum powder to reflect airframe heat in flight and inflated to 400 psi with nitrogen. The dual rudders in the rear of the plane act like vertical stabilators, canted at 15 degrees inboard to reduce undesirable roll. Now, like most Delta wings, the Blackbird does not have conventional ailerons or elevators, instead having 4 elevons on the trailing edge of the rear wing, combining pitch and roll functions. The Blackbird does not have a smooth outer skin. Instead, longitudinal corrugations run along it to increase strength and reduce thermal expansion. Smooth skins curl like pigtails under such stress. Fuel used on the SR71 has an extremely high flash point as to not ignite inside the wing tanks, called JP7. It is ignited with a special chemical called triethylborane, or TEB, which is injected during the starting process, causing a notable green flash upon engine start. Liftoff of the Blackbird is achieved around 230 knots, and the pilot has to be quick about retracting the landing gear, as they have a speed limit of 300 knots before failure. Takeoff is done with reduced fuel load, as a Blackbird cannot climb with a full load at low speed. Thus, the first thing every Blackbird pilot does is a mid-air refuel. The initial climb rate is 10,000 feet per minute at 400 knots. The refueling is done at 350 knots and at a rate of 5,500 pounds of fuel per minute. Transitioning to supersonic flight starts at approximately 35,000 feet using a maneuver called, and yes, this sounds ridiculous, the Dipsy Doodle. Starting with a descent of around 2,500 feet per minute and an airspeed of 450 knots until Mach 1 is passed. At 80,000 feet, the Blackbird is in a realm of its own, with the only real hazard being weather balloons, and sadly, I reckon by the time you notice those, it's going to be too late to do anything about it. During the time when the aircraft was top secret, pilots would regularly shut off the transponder when passing 60,000 feet, so that air traffic control would be unable to see the height and speed of the craft. Pilots of the SR71 had to plan far in advance before any maneuvers. In a 30-degree bank at Mach 3, the turn rate is a minuscule 0.3 of a degree per second. To make a 180-degree turn at said speed would take 10 minutes and cover an area the size of Dayton, Ohio, across Indiana, and over to Chicago, Illinois. Cruising speeds of 1,800 knots, or almost 2,100 miles per hour, should make this bird very, very well suited for straight line travel, covering a nautical mile every 2 seconds. Blackbird is equipped with a small periscope the pilot can use to check his rudders are not offset, causing unnecessary drag. The cockpit is pressurized, however, a special suit is needed similar to the ones used by astronauts. At 75,000 feet, a 5 psi differential pressure gives the internal cabin altitude gives an internal cabin altitude akin to 25,000 feet. This airframe also cannot take much of a load. At Mach 3, it is limited to 1/10 of a degree negative G-force and only 1.5 G positive. The Blackbird has no flaps, spoilers, speed brakes, or leading edge devices of any kind, making landing a delicate ordeal, utilizing reverse thrust and a parachute to slow down upon landing. The parachute being jettisoned around 60 knots so that it does not get wrapped in the rudders. For the first 30 or so minutes after landing, ground crew can only place fans to cool the brakes, as the frame is far too hot to touch. Post-flight, the crew has 650 items covered in 7 different checklists after every flight to take care of. Often called a guided missile with biological backup, the Blackbird truly is a machine of paradoxes. Now, for everyone's big question, how high and fast does this plane really go? Sadly, I can't give you a solid answer on that. However, informed sources, quote-unquote, will sometimes say flat-out sprinting is in the ballpark of 2,350 miles per hour and could break Mach 3.5 at 100,000 feet. The first flight of this craft was lifted off in 1962, cementing a spot as the highest flying and fastest jet known to man. That is, unless rumors of a plane codenamed Aurora, which I actually could not necessarily validate, are true, which was supposed to be a Mach 6 capable craft back in 1985. But that hypothetical is another video. 125 total pilots were able to fly the Blackbird, which makes it a very exclusive club of individuals. Other versions of the craft included the A-12 Ox Cart and the YF-12, which was equipped with a Hughes AN/ASG-18 fire control radar and could be fitted with AIM-47 Falcon air-to-air missiles. Wow. All right. If you guys made it through that, I'm impressed. With the informational part out of the way, let's just say it. The Blackbird's one of the coolest planes known to man. It still is. However, there are supposedly in 2025, I believe, they're supposed to start testing a model called the SR72 Dark Star. Granted, I couldn't confirm that either, but there's some stuff on Wikipedia if anyone's interested. And with that, this is your boy Kegs with another Military Aircraft Guns and Gaming. Have a good one, y'all.
What are you doing? No, don't do that.